So JD Vance embarrasses himself once again, and honest to God, like, minority MAGA, y'all need to come the fuck out and actually man the fuck up. Y'all don't see this shit? Y'all ain't see Matt Walsh? Mexicans who love MAGA, Latinos for Trump. I'm just kidding. Look, Latinos for Trump. Specifically Mexicans, because Matt Walsh was talking about Mexicans. I'm sure he hates Puerto Ricans and Dominicans and Colombians and Venezuelans and so on and so forth, but my Mexicanos, my guys, racist, I know. Mexicans who fuck on my show. You gotta show those Matt Walsh tweets to your homeboys, your partner, them, your family, your partners, your friends. Your family, your friends. You have to show those tweets to your boys, to your family, all your associates. You've got to show those tweets. MAGA fucking, I know y'all know, like those of you who watch my show, but bro, these niggas hate you. They hate you. And how I know? Because they hate me too. They hate blacks as well. They despise all of us, even each other, by the way. They don't even like each other. JD Vance, though, he comes on to let black MAGA have another moment of realization. JD Vance is on his show with Theo Vaughn, who's a total, he's the dumbest smart nigga I've ever, like, Theo Vaughn has, I feel like he has the capacity to be smart, but he just isn't utilizing it. JD Vance is on Theo Vaughn's show and he says that not everybody who fought for the Confederate side was an evil person. And I think it's so stupid that people believe that. Look at this crap.
Yeah.
And I feel like something happened like 10 years ago where it's like you have to think that every single person who fought for the Confederate side was an evil person. And I just think that's so stupid.
Yeah, it's really not stupid at all. Like, there's a reason why we perceive these radical and insane groups in a very holistic way. It's not just because it's easier for people to understand those groups in such a way. It's also because these groups are so fucking evil, so insane, so morally bankrupt, and so beyond what anybody would ever want to imitate and emulate in the future that we decide it's probably best if we view this entire group within the context of what they were fighting for. The reality is that anybody who read the Articles of Secession understands that the Confederates made it abundantly clear why they were leaving the Union. They were like, yo, slavery's really, really cool, and it's being banned, and we don't like that, so we're out of here. Toodles, that's what they said. But there was no cancel culture back then. White women couldn't even talk out of places without getting popped in the mouth. There was no cancel culture. There were no nose-ringed progressives outside. And the slavery. There was John Brown, though. I ain't gonna lie. There was John Brown, but he died. Shout out to John Brown. You know, he was the one person who fought for freedom that they just don't like for some reason. I don't know why the conservatives just don't like John Brown. Very weird. The Confederates back then, because there was no cancel culture, were perfectly fine saying, yo, slavery's really nice, really cool, so great. Many people are saying it, and we want to keep it going. It's so great. I'm superstitious like that. We want to keep it going. And they left the Union. You can even read the Cornerstone speech, in which the vice president of the Confederacy is like, yo, we're the first nation state to be founded on the very awesome and really just like naturally founded idea that the natural state of the black man is servitude to the white. That's just the natural order of things. And we're the first nation to ever be founded on this principle. Aren't we amazing? That's the type of literature these cats were putting out in the 1800s. That's what they were saying. That's what they were literally putting out this kind of work. You can literally watch Atunche films in which he goes in detail talking about how even the lowest ranked white soldiers were in support of slavery and felt as though slavery being abolished was an affront to whiteness itself as a racial identity. Watch.
This is Confederate cavalryman Frank Myers, registering his oath of allegiance to the Union in 1867. This is directly from his diary. Registered. That means swore to be a liar, fool, villain, and ain't white anymore, ain't honest anymore. And registered as loyal to the United States, and no honest, honorable, sensible, decent white man can be that. It's a common theme that you see in the writings of surrendering Confederates. They felt like they weren't white anymore.
Look up the moral tariff.
And to be honest, historically speaking, it makes perfect sense. Even I can be honest enough to admit that if I were a white man, born in the 1840s, and was old enough to fight in the Civil War in the 1860s, I probably would have thought, slavery's pretty cool. I would have thought that was an amazing thing. Someone's going to clip that. If I were a white man born in that time period and was old enough to fight in the Civil War, I probably would have thought slavery was a perfectly normal, reasonable, and rational institution. In fact, a lot of white people did feel, in fact, most of them did. The Northerners didn't like it because it was economically destructive for them. They didn't want anything to do with it. They wanted it as far the fuck away from them as humanly possible. They wanted those jobs. They didn't want to be replaced by slave labor. In fact, when freeing the slaves was made a war goal by Abraham Lincoln, there was a significant amount of desertions in the Union Army. White soldiers didn't want to die for slaves. They didn't want to die for slaves. They were willing to fight to maintain the Union. They were willing to fight to put an end to the treachery, the treason that was taking place. But die for slaves? They weren't willing to do that. The reality is the Confederacy took white supremacy and hatred to a level that even the North was not interested in. The South was willing to kill other white people to maintain the right to own black people forever. That is the reason why, that is part of the reason why we consider the Confederacy to be an evil movement and why we regard everyone who fought for it as evil, because it was evil. If you are raising a right, number one, enslaving another human being, raping them, mutilating them, owning them, trading them, breeding them, and taking their children and sending them elsewhere, destroying families, that is fucking evil. Nobody actually wants it to happen to them. Despite however many white conservatives you can find who swear to God slavery wasn't that bad and the blacks are just exaggerating it and everyone did it, so it's not that big of a deal, Your Honor, a lot of people kill people, so let me go. That kind of logic, despite what conservatives say, none of them would ever want to be a slave, much less a chattel slave in the antebellum South. They would never want that fate for themselves. And there's a reason why it was illegal to own other white people as slaves, because slavery is, I guess I have to say this, is wrong. It's wrong. It is wrong. To be able to look at a baby and say, you are my property, you are a slave, and I own you from the day you were born until the day you die. That requires evil to be in here. And the reality is, a lot of Americans back then knew it was fucking wrong, but they had to find a way to validate their beliefs. And they did it through religion. They did it even through limiting what slaves could learn in order to further dehumanize them. If slaves can't read or write, your preconceived notions about their lack of intelligence will become even more amplified, even further, because whenever you're talking to them, they can't understand certain words you're using. They can't read the paper you put in front of them. They can't read or write, which further just emboldens you to believe that these people deserve to be property. It was an evil ideology. What takes it to the next level of evil is the fact that the Confederates, the conservatives, well, literally the same thing. The Confederates back then were so resolved to own slaves that they were willing to kill northern white Americans to preserve the institution. They killed 600,000 Americans. Let me put this in perspective, y'all. We have not lost that many troops in a single war since. Combined? Sure. But in a single war, we have not lost that many men since. That many Americans in total since. 600,000, we haven't lost that many since. The most bloody war in our nation's history behind the right to own black Americans. It was an evil movement. And it's a damn fucking shame, because a lot of conservatives who sit there and support this shit would never say it about the Nazis. Well, now they might, because the Overton window is starting to shift, but Ben Shapiro types, Dennis Prager types, who spent all this time trying to normalize the Confederacy and explain away slavery when it wasn't that bad and everybody did it. These people wouldn't speak that way about the Holocaust, but they speak that way about slavery because they think they're a part of the club. And as Benjamin is finding out very recently, and also Dennis Prager, you're not a part of the club. And every single day, the Overton window shifts further and further and further and further and further. You will never be a part of the club. Even if you are a straight white male, you will look up one day and find that this hyper ethno-nationalistic theocratic movement is still not serving you well. It's still not doing right by you. Because the goal is not to take care of conservative white America. It's not to have a whole bunch of prosperous Aryan children. It's to funnel wealth to the rich, to disenfranchise the poor and the middle class, and to render them immobile within society, stopping them from having any ability to climb the socioeconomic ladder of society. That's why they want education to be so expensive. That's why they want you to go bankrupt from a medical emergency. These people are sickened by the idea of a common man being able to reach their level. Literally, conservatives are Vegeta in the Saiyan saga. Y'all remember Vegeta kept yapping about I'm a Saiyan elite? Only 2 Saiyans in the universe at the time, by the way. Nappa just got blown up. Raditz been dead. They don't even know about Broly. Vegeta just yapping about I'm a Saiyan elite and I come from the upper echelon of my race. And he can't. The idea of someone born in a lower social class reaching his level drives him fucking crazy. He cannot believe it. It's an affront to his identity. Y'all remember how King Vegeta was losing his motherfucking mind in the first Broly movie in Z? Where that nigga couldn't believe Broly had a power level that high to the point where he just picked up Broly and stabbed him? Crazy work! Even in the newer Broly movie, he said, we getting this little nigga up out of here. Put his little ass in a little pod and send his ass the fuck up out of here. Oh, Paragus, you mad? You going with him. See ya. Bye. The point of bringing up these anime references is this. That is how people like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and JD Vance feel. Not just about blacks, not just about the filthy non-whites, but also white people. They're tired of having to look the average white person in the face and be their equal. These people really do believe that not only are they superior racially to non-whites, they also believe they are individually genetically superior to other white people. And we know this isn't true because it required the social progress that we've enjoyed, as Westerners, built upon the backs of common men for us to get to this point. It wasn't a bunch of royal bloodline kind of dudes, inventing and discovering and all of that. Not to say that this never happened, but the majority of the people that have brought us to this point were men born of common, average, everyday parents. The reality is the elites will never be as talented as the millions and millions within the population. There are way too many people. You can't control for that much variation. You cannot in any way, shape, or form tell me that all of Elon Musk's bloodline, all them fucking broken homes he's built, if you could even call it that, all the broken homes he's created, not built, created, all the broken homes, you want me to believe all of them are genetically superior to the rest of humanity? It's not possible. It's not possible, but this is what these people believe. So understand and realize if you're one of these white conservatives saying the Confederacy wasn't that bad, come on, guys. No, it was that bad. And it's about time that conservative white America stopped being little snowflake ass, pussy ass, hoe ass niggas and grew up. I sat there and let if you got conservative parents, send them this clip. I was born in 01. When I was 14 years old, I got into conservative media. I watched Candace Owens build a whole career behind telling black folk to let go of the past, move on, stop complaining about the past. I watched conservative women sit there and say, if you got a baby, you shouldn't be getting an abortion. You need to take accountability and have that baby and move on. I watched conservatives dictate accountability and reality to the rest of the world, to all of these demographics of people they look down on. Now when it's time for them to come to terms with historical reality that's already been said and done, they can't do it. The Confederacy, it happened. The Confederates lived and they died, and they made sure everyone knew what they felt when they were alive. They left behind journals. They left behind articles. They left behind all sorts of things for you to understand exactly how they felt at that time. From the fucking president of the Confederacy to the lowest fucking infantryman, these guys made it abundantly clear how they felt about black people, how they felt about slavery, and their willingness to fight and die for the right to preserve it. It is a lie that, not everybody who fought for the Confederate side was an evil person. It doesn't matter. I'm sure there might have been one Confederate soldier who was like, look, I'm just fighting for my state. Not a big fan of the blacks, but I don't care about them either. Not a big fan of slavery. I'm just here. I'm just vibing. I'm sure there were like one or two. But it's important to understand that the Confederates back then, We're firm believers that if slaves were freed, it would turn into a total revolt in which it would be servile insurrection and every slave would go over the entire nation, destroying everything and killing everyone. That didn't happen at all. In fact, it was the opposite. All throughout the South, white Southerners, former Confederate soldiers, many of them, were committing acts of racial terror all over the South, driving black Americans up north. We call that the Great Migration, where black Americans realized we are not safe down here. We need to leave. There are stories of entire black towns being blown up, entire massacres of towns because of the amount of violence white Southerners were allowed to exercise in the event of them being upset. That's the reality of what was allowed here. The Confederacy was and is evil, and it wasn't just evil to blacks, it was also evil to whites. White men had to die because the Confederacy was so evil they couldn't leave well enough alone. They had to pick up rifles and not rebel, commit treason against their fellow man, kill them. And then when they lost the war, instead of actually being honorable and saying, you know what, we fought for the right to own slaves, we failed, we lost, it's time to let this go, it's a shameful thing we did, we killed 600,000 Americans behind bullshit, let's let this go. Instead, they rewrite the story to make themselves look better in the eyes of not only Southern white Americans, but also Northern white Americans. And here we are today with American soldiers clapping because Confederate names of bases are being reinstated. Look, I get it. I say Fort Benning all the time by accident all the fucking time. But do I actually like uttering the name of a Confederate, soldier and venerating and honoring that? Fuck no. I know a lot of people don't care. A lot of people just don't give a shit. But the reality is, this has had consequences. The people you see supporting MAGA are the ideological descendants of the Confederacy. Many of them aren't even genetic descendants. They're just ideological inheritors. A lot of them Italian, mainland Italian, Sicilian, Polish, Irish, mid 20th century immigrants from Ireland coming through Ellis Island. I mean, these people had nothing to do with that era of American history, yet they fight for and defend it. I saw Polish guys at the Unite the Right rally holding tiki torches. You will not replace us. Your last name ends with ski. Why are you here? This has nothing to do with you. You may be an American, but hold your horses, my G. Okay? Come the fuck on here. It's gotten to the point where it's not even an Anglo-Saxon white man and black American black man conversation anymore. It's a conversation in which millions of Americans, most of them white, most of them having no connection to any of this at all, completely deluded thanks to historical revisionism done by white Southerners who could not accept the fact that what they had done was evil, it was wrong, and it was shameful. And now we have people trying to rewrite the story of the Civil War to this day. To this day. Maybe Vance sits there and says, I feel like something happened 10 years ago where everyone who fought for the Confederacy is now evil. That's called 10 years ago. That's called people realizing the truth. It's called people actually doing research and learning about what the Confederacy actually stood for. If you want to fly a flag that is all about rebellion, you can fly the American flag. We rebelled against the British. If you want to fly a flag of a rebellion, you can fly the fucking Gadsden flag or that fucking gay-ass don't tread on me shit. You can fly that if you want. If you want to, you can. But you know what you're doing when you fly that Confederate flag. You know exactly what you were doing. And I'm done pretending with people like it was an innocent movement of gentlemen just trying to fight for the right to determine their own future as states. No, they were fighting for the right to determine the future of Americans who were owned as slaves and were living lives of torture on a daily basis. J.D. Vance is a piece of shit. And by the way, he himself trying to normalize the Confederacy and do all of this and do all the carrying on that we carrying on. Let me tell you how he's on. He is building a future for his family that's horrible. J.D. Vance has a mixed half Indian family. You trying to normalize white supremacy and all of that, it's not going to work out good for you. It's just not. He seems to be under the impression that his family will be treated like royals or the genetic, social elite. No, there is no elite. in white supremacy made up of non-white people. You're either white or you're not. White supremacy is built so the most lowliest white man possible can be elevated socially above the most exceptional black man alive. That's the entire point of white supremacy. So the reality is that conservatives are the kings and queens of ducking and dodging accountability in history. They are the kings and queens of being unwilling to let go of the past. They're the ones who couldn't let go. You think black Americans can't let go because black Americans enjoy reliving these conversations? Black Americans can't let go because conservative white America has refused to let go. That's the reality of it. That's just the truth. I don't got a problem with conservative white Americans who keep their conservatism to themselves, but with the ones who want to worship and extol the Confederacy, I have a problem with that. You can't preach and yap back and forth to black Americans and women and minorities about letting go of the injustices of the past, and the whole time you're still honoring people who betray the United States, knowing full and fucking well that if Robert E. Lee and Nathan Bedford Forrest and fucking Stonewall Jackson were black, there would never ever be a statue of them ever. The fuck out of here. If Nathan Bedford Forrest was black, that statue, that shitty statue of his, wouldn't even have existed. The fuck out of here. What are we talking? They would have been killed, by the way. They wouldn't have been, they would have been killed. They would have been in prison and then shot. Allowed to walk off and become a citizen. What the fuck? Insane. If those men were black, we would never even think of them as some kind of fucking noble group of men fighting for the right states, right? The fuck? Absolutely insane. JD Vance is morally bankrupt, and I hope Black MAGA is paying attention. Y'all can't outrun the reality of the Confederacy forever. All you Black MAGA types who have bought into this nonsense of it was just about states' rights, you can't outrun this forever. You cannot outrun this forever. I don't give a fuck if a white liberal has to break this down to you. You can't outrun this forever. The black conservatives love to take the, oh, you're the condescending white liberal angle. I don't give a fuck if they condescend to your ass. Somebody has to teach y'all, because y'all ain't gonna listen to me, because it's just, oh, you're whining about slavery. Apparently the white boy got to explain it to your ass. That's the reality of it. Black MAGA, you better wake the fuck up, man. These people don't respect you. They don't like you. You think if Robert E. Lee and Nathan Bedford Forrest and the rest of them were black, they'd accept statues of those men in the Capitol? You think there would have been statues of them at all in the first place? Use your head. Use your head. The reality is conservatives are unwilling to let go of the past. Conservatives don't take accountability. Conservatives don't take responsibility. They're the kings and queens of, well, just get over it. To you, but for whatever they care about, it must be honored and respected and extolled forever. And if you don't have a statue of it, you're erasing history, because apparently, if we don't have a statue of Adolf Hitler, who's gonna possibly know who he is? The fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Conservatives are morally bankrupt. They love slavery. They love racism. They love classism. These people literally live and breathe evil. They are creatures of evil. They are disgusting. And if you are a right winger who's not aligned with this shit, and you're just now realizing how bad this all is, by all means come aboard. Fuck MAGA, fuck them niggas. You're welcome on the left. I don't give a fuck what none of these liberals say. Welcome aboard. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. You should have came over sooner. You're a piece of shit. If you are one of those MAGA folk who have realized how bad this movement is, by all means, I welcome you aboard. I welcome you aboard. Conservatives engage in history revisionism, all for the sake of their what? Their feelings. The same people who yelled facts over feelings all throughout 2015, 2016, 2017. Are you triggered? These people cannot accept the historic realities of what the Confederacy stood for, because they are triggered. Because the facts are hurting their what? Their feelings. The conservatives are the original masters of history revisionism. The masters of running away from reality because it fucking hurts. It's too uncomfortable to admit. Instead of confronting it, letting it go, they want you to ignore the moral reality of what the Confederacy actually stood for, so they can have their heritage not hate fantasy. These people are children, they're not serious leaders, and that is the reason why you see all these fools carrying on the way they're carrying on in government, because they are not qualified to be there. Because this is who the fuck these people are. That is the reality of it. Shouldn't talk about some not everybody on the Confederate side was an evil person. Burn in fucking hell. Burn in hell.